Hi everyone and welcome to episode 10 of the Rubbish Talk podcast. We're going to do a bit of a recap this week because for us, Alistair, episode number 10 was a bit of a milestone we wanted to reach, and when it started with this crazy idea at the beginning of the year, it came around quite quickly. So episode 10, we have our usual interview with Pamela Knox-Welsh, who is Communications Manager at Levenseat. We have a really good chat with her, all about the commercial side and a bit of a different angle from the sector. But first of all, Alistair and I will do our usual roundup of what's happened in the industry and the news this week. So first of all, as I said, we're going to reflect on 10 episodes. It's been a bit of a crazy couple of months since the beginning of the year, but we've made it.
We've managed it. We've actually managed 11, Heather, because we did have, in case you missed it, we had a bonus episode out on Monday with Chris, I'm struggling to remember his surname. Chris Newton from Plastic, regarding the little bit of kit we'd invested in to identify plastic. So loads of, in terms of episode 10, loads of downhole, loads of international followers for some reason, which is strange since we tend to concentrate on what's happening in Scotland and the UK, but there's downloads from over 22 countries, and delighted that some of these followers have actually reached out to us and said hi and put comments up and so on, and we're certainly getting into or close to the 4 figures in terms of total downloads for the podcast. Big shout out to Simon Glenn, whose episode is sitting at number 1 slot. Sadly, I'm sitting at number 5 slot. My episode's sitting at 5 slot. And
you say that through gritted teeth there. That congratulations wasn't quite sincere.
Absolutely, but I do have a podcast that exists out there that has got 1,474 downloads, and that was the running one I did with Young Hearts Run Free, who were a bit of the inspiration for this podcast. So John Cassidy very kindly let me know how many times it had been downloaded, mainly because I was down at a running event a weekend or so ago, and people kept talking. People were either entering the Dragon's Back race or thinking about entering the Dragon's Back race, and it came up with the podcasts and all the rest. And I was, quite often I was in that conversation as, it was you that did that podcast then. So I felt like a salesman for the Young Hearts Run Free podcast when I was down there. So I'll need to get some stickers or something off them so I can do a proper job next time.
Yeah, I know anyone who's listened, I think maybe the first episode we did give them a bit of a shout out, because I think that's where I got Alistair's very out of the blue email one afternoon saying, I was just on a podcast, I think we could do one. So it all stemmed from there, I suppose. So that's great.
And we've managed 10, so we've done no too bad.
But yeah, absolutely, we're getting there, and it's quite good to see we're having a breakdown of some of the stats, and both Alistair and myself, I think, go on every time an episode's released, or weekly, maybe daily at some point when Alistair was sitting at number 1 having a refresh of the statistics. But it's quite good to see we get a bit of a breakdown of our demographic of listeners. But I wondered if this is something that's a kind of industry theme, because I did notice that our majority of listeners are male. I think over 65% are male listeners, and similarly the most popular age bracket as well is kind of 45 to 59-year-olds, and I think that's a conversation that comes up quite a lot through the Switch forum and Albion, and trying to kind of bring a younger workforce and interest them in the industry. Do you think that's maybe where that's from, Alistair, that reflects maybe how the industry's sitting, the workers? Or is it just a lot of your contacts that listen to us?
It could be a bit of both. We probably need to do some more scientific research on this. But no, I think in industry profile, certainly the waste management sector is an ageing workforce. So there's a requirement to engage with younger people, and that's some of the work we're trying to do with Switch. It used to be very, very male dominated. It used to be 90% male sort of thing. It has got better recently, but I suppose 65% is probably 65-70% is probably where the industry's sitting at. I know recent events I've been at actual live events, it's a pretty good mix. It's maybe not quite 50-50 male female. It'd be good to try and engage with some of the younger listeners. It's probably quite good to try and engage with the older listeners. We seem to have fairly few 60 and above. I'm sure some of them care about the environment and care about waste management and so on. I did one of the young athletes at Ayr Seaforth, Kirsten Oakley. She actually messaged me the other day. So she's now working up at Glencoe as a volunteer for the National Trust. So she's driving up and down to Glencoe a bit, and she said she's working through the podcasts and our drive up and down so she's been finding them useful. So I think we need to just engage with some of these young people and get them to share out. And we have tried to make the podcast about careers as well as waste management. So we can only do what we do and share as widely as we can and get people to share, and hopefully that will increase coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're doing quite a good job here at Albion. I think we're actually female dominated, and if anyone's noticed this trend in our episodes, we are trying to do a 50-50 split with our male-female guests at the moment, just to try and represent the industry as much as we can. So yeah, absolutely, we appreciate it, and everyone sharing it and getting it out there to a wider audience. I think we try and keep it not too technical, and as you'll notice in the episodes, if we do go technical, we step back and we break it down, or we get our guests to break it down. So it's definitely not too niche for anyone. We want to try and educate people, so even if this isn't your bread and butter, it should be good to get your head around a few things. I've certainly learned a lot as we talk to people, so it's worthwhile spreading it out there.
Yep, good. And I think news hot off the press is a couple of episodes ago, I can't actually remember how many episodes ago, we talked about a contact of mine who refused to recycle their food waste at the house. They did all the other recycling, but they refused to do their food waste recycling. I did get a message from him fairly recently to say, was that me you were talking about in your podcast? But the good news is he has now actually got a food waste bin, and he's now recycling his food waste. So we'll shame them into one at a time.
If you won't listen when we're being nice, we'll just have to shame you into it. If that's the tactic that works, we'll keep going with it. But that's good.
He did say I could name him, but I'm not going to do that, Tim. That's not. We'll protect our sources. We'll protect our sources.
They've redeemed themselves by getting a food waste bin, so we'll leave it at that. But that's good news. Yeah. See, we're making a difference already.
And in terms of shaming people into this, I had a little bit of a rant in LinkedIn just the other day about the Waste Scotland Regulations 2012, because my local pub that's just round the corner had 4 Eurobins sitting outside the back door, overflowing with waste, overflowing with recycling, no attempt to actually do any recycling as required by the Waste Scotland regs. And I put up a bit of a post to say, what's going on here? These regulations have been in place for 10 years. We're clearly not enforcing, and so on. Interestingly, the contractor that used to do their waste tried to get them to recycle more, and they got kicked off the job, and they got another company in when they did that.
Oh.
So that's not very positive. So,
no, it's not.
So it's back to probably our usual rant, if you like. There's no point putting legislation in place if we're not actually going to enforce it and make it happen. So we'll put that, if anybody's interested. It's not that exciting. A picture is a picture of 4 bins with overflowing waste. But I
think we might have the right audience for that, so we might be all right.
You never know. I do actually, talking about pictures, I do get people sending me pictures of park benches with lots of flowers and stuff. So
I thought you were on your own there, to be honest.
Not at all. No, I have had people send me pictures, so there you go. There are other people with such interests.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely.
And then what else is in the go? The other sort of fairly current news is Scottish Government issued a new incineration report just a couple of days ago, and the real focus of that is looking at decarbonisation of the waste sector, and there's quite a bit in there about trying to stop the combustion of plastics, basically. I've not gone into it in a huge amount of detail, but I suppose the focus of the report appears to be on or some of the focus in the report appears to be on removal of plastic from the residual waste. But I think the concern there is plants to do that are very expensive to build, very expensive to operate, and when you do remove the plastic, it's poor quality plastic that you struggle to get a market with. And is that really the right direction to go, or should we be trying to make sure we actually stop the waste, stop the plastic getting into that residual waste in the first place? But there's good stuff in there about carbon capture, about heat recovery, all that sort of stuff. So again, as usual, we'll share the links. We'll share the link with that report so you can have a look at your leisure.
Yeah, we'll have them on the show notes, and we'll put it on the Rubbish Talk website as well for anyone, as along with everything else we've talked about in reference. But I thought I'd just have a wee shout out to, personally for me and for the wider Albion team, who all completed the Kilt Walk last Sunday. We've done the Glasgow Kilt Walk, so we've done 14.4 miles, which I think actually, looking at some of the stats on the fitness watches, was about 15 all in. So just wanted to give a big shout out to the team who done that in the rain. It wasn't really the most pleasant day, but we made the most of it and we enjoyed it. And we also raised some money for Whiteley's Retreat in Ayrshire, who Albion have worked with quite a few times in the past, a great local charity. So yeah, it was a great day, a wee bit of fitness, which we always like to include in any of these things that we do, and a wee bit of team building, a bit of chat along the way. So yeah, shout out to the team, well done everyone, we really enjoyed it.
And thank you also to everybody that sponsored as well, because the total was quite, I think, a good few £100.
Yeah, we've done really well, and again, we done fundraising at the kind of end of the summer last year, and we know it's tough times for everyone, so we really appreciate anyone who gives up some other hard-earned cash, but it is a really worthwhile cause. Every penny goes to Whiteley's, so thanks everyone for that.
There you go. And then last but not least, I was going to say I was glued to television set at the weekend watching the King's coronation, but that'd actually be a lie. I only actually watched some of the highlights. But what did intrigue me was on social media. I was seeing lots of pictures of the streets being left in a mess after everybody was celebrating, and it just sort of it made me despair to a certain extent. I quite often go backpacking, camping. I do like a bottle of beer. I'll carry my beer in, but I'll also carry my empty beer bottles back out. And you just sort of wonder why people, they're coming to a big event, national event, meant to be celebrating, the country, if you like, and we just leave the place disgusting behind ourselves. And there's a real mentality, and it's a bit like that. Was it Japan? The Japanese football supporters that swept up the football stadium. It's just why have we got so little respect for the country?
Yeah. I mean, that was everything you talked about last week, and you wrote the blog about, and how, what is it we're doing wrong? Why we've got such a litter problem, and it's such a shame. And I don't know, maybe I've just not actually saw anything on the news, but when you first mentioned this and I saw some pictures on Twitter and things, I did think, it's weird, because I hadn't actually saw much coverage of that side of the coronation, whereas if you think to the World Cup or any sporting events, it's normally all over the news, people complaining about how terrible the football or other sports fans are for leaving a mess behind them. So maybe it's just me, I'm not saying for sure, I've not done my research, but I certainly haven't saw as much, and it's a shame, because it shouldn't just be linked to a sport or a certain demographic of people. That was as you said, a national event that everyone, all ages, shapes, sizes, was there and contributed to the mess, and everyone should be getting called out for it. Again, it's just, is it a lack of respect? They're there to show respect for their king and new queen for the weekend, but can't show respect to the streets. So it's a shame.
There we
Maybe it's
go.
only us that notice things like that, though. Everyone's still eating their cake and drinking their cups of tea and forgetting about it.
There's other people notice, but they don't grumble as much about as we do, probably. So there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough from ourselves. As always, you know, if you want updates, if you sign up on the Rubbish Talk website for the newsletter, whatever. But as Heather said, we'll put all the links and stuff on the show notes if people want to look at any of the information. Big shout out to Pamela, who Pamela was probably the first person that I never really knew that well that we interviewed. I've been cheating everybody else I've actually known quite well. So it was great to get Pamela's story about how she got into the industry, and also a little bit about the story of Levenseat, which is a SME that's very active in Scotland in terms of waste management, recycling, and so on. So great to talk to Pamela.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great one. So we'll let you dive into it right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 10 of the Rubbish Talk podcast. Today we have Pamela Knox-Welsh on, who is Communications Manager at Levenseat. So welcome Pamela, thanks very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I feel very honoured to be invited and rather unworthy, I have to admit.
No, not at all, Pamela.
And congratulations, double digits in your podcast. Well done. And
thank you. Yeah, this is a very special episode. You're on for number 10. So we weren't actually planning a special guest for 10. So I think this is going to be a good one.
Should have brought a wee cake.
I've not even looked at the rankings for about a week, so I'll need to have a look at the rankings as well.
Oh, the pressure.
You'll see it as we go on. Pamela Alistair's quite competitive with the episodes since his one was one of the first.
Right.
But he's swiftly been overtaken with some of our other guests, so no pressure there for you.
Yeah, well, I think I'm probably, as well as well known at Levenseat, not very well known in the industry, so I'm sure you'll beat me in numbers, Alistair.
No, you never know.
So, well, to kick off then, Pamela, that kind of leads us into the first question. If you want to just kind of tell our listeners and, you know, tell me and Alistair about a wee bit about Levenseat, background about the organisation and how you ended up there.
Okay, so Levenseat is a SME. It's a recycling and resource management company. We're based in central Scotland, so right on the border of South Lanarkshire and West Lothian, but we treat waste from all over Scotland. We work with probably now 60% of local authorities, everywhere from Scottish Borders out to Shetland Islands, would you believe, and lots of councils in between. We also have a very healthy commercial customer base as well. We have 2 sites now. So the main site being at Forth, and on that site we have, I think it's probably 5 now, factories, if you like, that deal with recovering waste, recovering resource from waste, should I say.
Yeah.
So we've got a container recycling facility that looks to recover glass, metal and plastics. We've got a wash plant facility for minerals recovery from waste streams such as street sweepings and gully waste. We've got our organics recycling facility for all your food and garden waste. It's an award-winning process in there, should say that, you know, marketer.
Yep.
We've also got the MRFP, so material recycling facility and fuel preparation plant, which and is also connected to the power plant. So we have that down at the lower end of the site, and that looks to deal with your residual waste, so recovering recyclates there, preparing what can't be recycled into a fuel, and then transporting that over a wee conveyor belt into the gasification energy from waste power plant. So yeah, and we also, which nobody likes to talk about, but we also still have at that Forth site landfill. It was a big part of Levenseat's past. It's a medium part of its present and hopefully a smaller part of its future. But yes, that's what's at our main site at Forth. And then we also, you may have read about maybe just a little over a year ago now, took ownership of the old Avondale facility, and it's now called Levenseat Lathallen. And in true waste management style, we have repurposed that facility, and it previously handled residual waste, and we have kind of reconfigured it to handle bulky household waste, so your mattresses, your couches, and anything sort of oversized. And we also take a little bit of construction and demolition waste in there too. So that's what we do, and why we do it, I suppose, is, you know, Levenseat has, you know, obviously we're a commercial business and we have to be commercially sound, but we do have a bigger purpose in that we are looking to develop sustainability to the point where nothing is wasted, and we do really stand by that. And we, as a result, tend to be a lot of time the first to do a lot of things. They're very much risk takers, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But we're well known for being innovative, and I know there's a lot of companies who claim that, but Levenseat truly are. You know, if you take our materials recycling facility, fuel preparation plant, power plant, for example, you know, we've put in the front end process, we pull out the recyclates, we create energy from what can't be recycled, but we don't stop there. You know, we then have this ash byproduct, and we have a very innovative technical team who have looked at how we even further recycle that ash and get resource out of it, and have came up with all sorts of amazing ways to recycle these ash products. So we stand by that. We can actually evidence how innovative we are as a company, and that's just one example. But yeah, so we really do, I suppose, if you like, even take the waste and make sure it's recovered and do something innovative with it. So yeah, it's a real good company to work for. They really are future thinkers, and they really do try to do the best by their customers. So yeah, that's Levenseat.
Sounds good, Pamela. And I think there was quite big news just recently about the energy from waste facility, I believe.
Yeah. Levenseat Renewable Energy Limited, and this is where our I guess our business model can be quite confusing, because there's Levenseat Limited, which has its own board and very much runs independently, and then there's Levenseat Renewable Energy Limited, which Levenseat is a part of, but we have external investment there from Zook Capital and the BIG, etc. And it has another separate board, so the materials recycling facility part of it is very much the operation and maintenance contract. It's very much run by Levenseat. That is our area of expertise, so we took that on. Whereas on the power plant side, that wasn't our area of expertise, and we had the operation and maintenance contract there was run by Utatech, who were also the technology provider. But over the years, Levenseat Renewable Energy Limited has built up that knowledge of how to run that plant. And when Utatech, I suppose, exited the UK energy from waste market, luckily Levenseat Renewable Energy Limited were able to transfer those staff across and retain all the skills, and so it removes one party from that side of the business. And yeah, we've just announced that on Monday. And yes, it's welcome to the family, to that
Absolutely.
to that
Good.
set of that team down there. So exciting times.
Great. And for the listeners that don't know, Heather's wondering what on earth I'm going to say now. The listeners that don't know, when you fly into Edinburgh Airport from the south, if you look out the right-hand side window, you will get a cracking view, as I did the other day, of Levenseat, landfill, incineration, the MRF, and all the facility. It's the best view. I've had it for a long time.
Oh,
Right,
what?
I know, and it's one of the reasons why Edinburgh airport visitors regularly to make sure we've got the seagulls under control because we're in their flight path.
Yeah.
You
And
do need to get some advertising in the roof. That's all I can say. You
Yeah.
need to get some
Yeah,
advertising in the
that's
roof
the
quite
next
somewhere.
one.
good. Yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, so thanks for that introduction. In terms of yourself, Pamela, how did you get involved in the waste industry then? Was there a plan, or was it a...
No,
I was going to say a
no,
mistake, but I better not say a mistake.
definitely not a mistake, but not a plan either. But I guess I'm one. I never really knew what I wanted to do with my life. I think that's a normal thing. Although I have to admit that I didn't realise that when I was young and trying to choose my options at school and then at university. I very much felt like everybody around me knew what they wanted to do. There was people who wanted to go be teachers and doctors, and even my siblings, you know, they knew they wanted to go into IT or science or finance, and there was me thinking, oh, I have no idea what I want to do in life. And in sixth year, I did a business management hire, and I thought, do you know what? I enjoyed this. This is good. This is a hire. And I was a very kind of, you know, at school, kind of, I suppose, all-rounder, if you like. I was never really very good at English or very good at maths, just a kind of general all-rounder. And did business management, and I thought, right, I could enjoy this. Still don't know what the career is when I come out of it, but I liked it, that it wasn't just one thing. You know, there was economics, there was marketing, there was finance, there was lots of different things in there. So off I went to university to do my business degree, and came out of university and again thought, what am I going to do?
This is sounding quite familiar to me, Pamela, so far.
Yeah. What am I going to do? This is a very generous degree. What have I done? I should have went and been a teacher, or been a doctor, or be a scientist or something. And everybody else, I felt like everybody else had it figured out, and there was little of me going, help. So actually, through my dad is actually in finance, but has always been very, very passionate about community work, and does a lot in the community, and ran the local youth club, and is in the local community council, and all these endeavours that he does. And so, as you do when your family's involved in things, you tend to help out and get all your friends involved as well. And we used to go and volunteer very regularly at the local youth project and help the kids put on shows, etc. And from there, I found an opportunity with it was a third sector charity called Strathclyde Youth, who were looking to, I suppose, bring themselves into the 21st century and modernise themselves a little bit. And again, my dad worked with them in some capacity and volunteered with them in some capacity. So I went along there and got a job, really just sort of helping them fix their policies and procedures, help get the youth clubs that were affiliated to them insured, etc. And then started working a lot more closely with them with the young people, etc. And from there, this is a very long story, I apologise, but from there, we did a lot of work with the fire service. And eventually, to cut a long story short, joined their partnership unit, and they had in their sort of community engagement section of the fire service, and started working there, educating the public on keeping themselves safe from fire. And it's actually a unit that was put together because they'd done a lot of research and found that, I'm not going to do this justice, but found that in Scotland, if you lived in Scotland, you were 20% more likely to die in a house fire, than anywhere else in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And so they took a pause and said, like, we need to identify why this is, and did a lot of research, and then decided it was because they weren't working very well together, and they had to get, so they got police, fire, NHS, social work, third sector all together to work together to identify why this was and come up with a really sound community engagement piece to really turn that around. And they were very successful. And I worked in there and ended up being seconded there for a number of years, but mainly looking at their education package and how they would teach young people in schools about how to stay safe and all the dangers of fire, etc. And that was great, and I enjoyed it, but I very quickly realised there wasn't a progression route there. And also at the same time going through major life changes and had my first little boy. And that really does change your life.
Yeah, I think so many people have said at that point that's when you put things in perspective, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And there was more travel involved in the fire service. Towards the end, they were becoming one service, Fire Scotland. So there was a lot more travel involved. And I thought, just had my little boy, I was coming to the end of maternity leave, and I thought, I want something closer to home here, and I want something that, allows me a good work-life balance. And so I can be the main care provider for my little one, but still have a career, out with mum life. So and this was only about 9 years ago, and believe it or not, still you actually could look for jobs in the newspaper as opposed to all the jobs boards. And there was this little ad from Levenseat Trust, so not even Levenseat Limited, Levenseat Trust were looking for a administrator to come and administrate the landfill tax credit funds. So Levenseat Trust is independent from Levenseat Limited. It has its own board, etc. But it's funded by the landfill tax credits from Levenseat Limited and other additional funding as well. So I went along for that interview. I thought, God, this is like the perfect job for me. It's community engagement. It's helping, communities by funding them to from everything from eco projects to repairing buildings, etc. This is my job,
Ideal, yeah.
And I went along, and there was on the interview panel was Jim, who was retiring from the post, Bill, who was the chair of Levenseat Trust, and Hugh Hamilton, who is Levenseat Limited's founding director and also Levenseat Trust's founding director, and half ownership of Levenseat Limited. And thought the interview was going really well, answering all the questions. And Hugh was just a natural charmer. He was sort of asking questions like, what, if you did this 3 days for Levenseat Trust, how would you feel about working for Levenseat Limited for another couple of days? And me, like, I wanted this job, it's just like, and I was like, yes, whatever you want. So away I went, and and I knew nothing about the waste management industry, I have to say, absolutely nothing. I very naively put my waste in the bin and just believed that somebody was doing something with it. Never thought much further than that. The council's taking care of it. I never had realised that there was this whole, middle person who was actually recovering and taking care of things. So anyway, I got the phone call the next day, and it was Hugh, and he said, have you heard from the trust? Did you get that job? And I said, I don't know. Shouldn't you be telling me if I'm getting that job? He said, well, if you've not been told, I'll just tell you, you're not getting that job, but why don't you come and work for us? And he said, and I was like, okay, well, what's the job? And he said, come and we'll discuss it. So it was then the most informal interview I've ever been to, I think. And it was a good chat with Hugh, Peter, who is the other founding director at Levenseat, and Angus Hamilton, who's our managing director. Although he wasn't at the time, I can't remember what his title was at the time. I think it was Business Development Director. And we went along, and it was just a good chat. And I just thought, I really like these people. It's a family-run business. I like the ethos. I knew nothing about the waste management industry. I probably made a lot of promises that I couldn't keep. They kept asking me, can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. I just thought to myself, I can't, but I'll learn. I can't, but how hard can it be? I'll learn, I'll do it.
And you soon found out how hard it
yeah,
could be.
exactly. And I started off actually as their community liaison officer, and they knew, I didn't know at the time, they didn't tell me at the time, but they knew that the energy from waste was on the horizon, and they weren't far from financial close on that, and they knew that they had to be ready to really make sure people didn't misunderstand what that was, and that the community really needed to know what was being built and what we were doing, and try and, you know, clear up a lot of the miscommunications around ownership from waste. And that was my first remit, was just to get out and teach the local community what Levenseat's doing, and you know, and that we are recycling their waste, and it's not all just going in the landfill. And yeah, and really sort of being, it was very much a faceless organisation, and sort of putting a face to it, and just making sure that the local community had somebody they could contact if they had any concerns, and somewhere that schools could get in touch with if they wanted to learn about what was happening to their waste. And it started off as a very small role, 2.5 days a week, just teaching people what happened to their waste. And then from there I've grown into the communications role. So community benefits still very much sits under my remit. I still look after all of Levenseat's community engagement activities, everything from our education programmes and Learn with Levenseat, which we were about to launch with Scottish Borders, and our sponsorship programmes, our employment initiatives, so like foundation apprenticeships and work experience, etc. But I also then was asked to take on our, you know, Levenseat's wider portfolio of external engagement and external communications, and looking after Levenseat's reputation, if you like, and how we're perceived to the outside world. And that's everything from their marketing to a bit of customer care to managing the website, digital social media, everything you can think of under that comms bracket. And then so I really have 3 portfolios. So there's that external comms, there's that community engagement, and then more recently, which I'm excited to sort of get my teeth into, is looking more at Levenseat's people strategy, and just how we look after our team from hire all the way to retire, and everything in between, personal development, making sure that, you know, we do really champion that family ethos. And I think it's something that becomes more challenging as you grow. It's easy when you're small, and, you know, communication, you can get everybody in a room and you can talk to them. Whereas now I feel we're getting a lot bigger. We have a mainly offline workforce, so communication becomes more difficult, and we just really need to make a real effort to make sure that our team are looked after, and that our managers are supported, so therefore they can support their teams, etc. So that's what is in the future, I suppose, a little bit for my role. But yeah, so as I think I was saying before, it's a bit of a general, I feel like a little bit of a general dog's body at times. When you work for an SME, you very much have to wear many hats. There's no way of getting around it. If it's not operations and it's not compliance or commercial, then it sits on my desk, and I get involved in a lot of things, and there's a lot of variety, and that's what I like. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. But yeah. So sorry, that was a very long story, but that is how I ended up in the waste, very naively, in the waste management.
I love the fact that, you know, it came from, you know, the start of that journey was from community engagement and volunteering. You know, I think that's brilliant, and I think there's probably so many people that have ended up in roles because of some sort of volunteering they've done in the past, you know, that leads in it, you know. So for young people, you know, if they're not sure what they're doing, volunteering and stuff is so important to open doors for them in the future. Just sort of looking back, any favourite roles or projects that you think, oh, I wish I was back there, or the opposite way, where you think, thank goodness that's over?
Yeah, I've got both positive things. Community engagement is definitely my passion. I think, you know, people I love talking to people. It's something that comes quite naturally, I think. When I think back to, I mean, and it was only 9 years ago, Levenseat, where they were really cautious about opening the doors, about, you know, flinging that gate open and saying, no, look, we've got nothing to hide. Come and see what we do. We genuinely are doing the best we can with what you put in your bin. And I've really enjoyed learning all about that to go and teach. And I think that we're very lucky that we get very few complaints at Levenseat, but when we do, it's something that a lot of people would shy away from. Oh no, they're going to complain, I don't want to talk to them. Whereas I'm like, oh, I just pick up the phone and just say, listen, come and learn and come and see, and that'll help put your mind at rest over any concerns that you have about how Levenseat operates. And that's actually a part of my job that I really enjoy. And the project that we're about to launch with Scottish Borders, Learn with Levenseat, and you can go look at it. It's out there. It'll never be finished. It's one of these projects that we will always add to, but it is a resource that we've created for schools. It's linked to Curriculum for Excellence. We've worked in partnership with Scottish Borders education team to teach young people what's happening with their waste. In the hope that hopefully we're not lecturing them, hopefully that we're just sort of educating them so that they can see that, you know, the difference of putting a can in a recycling bin as compared to a residual waste bin. You know, I'm a true believer that industry, we're the ones that have to educate the public on it. We're the ones that have the tools there, we're the ones that are doing it. And we can also have that single stream message, if you like, because I think local authorities, for example, you know, they're trying to educate the world on, you know, all the roads and schools and everything. And so that waste message only gets a percentage of their time or their focus, whereas we can really show people what happens to their waste. And I think seeing is believing, and particularly at Levenseat, you know, when we've got the container MRF recycling facility and the residual waste facility, we can show you that if you put that in that bin, then there's a 90% chance that's going to get recycled. If you put it in that bin, it's a 20% chance. So why not let people see this so that they can actually be educated on it? So that's you know, it's a website that's got videos and interactive tools, etc., to learn all about your waste. And
we can share. I'm sure we can organise to share that in the show notes, and the show notes go out as a newsletter for people to sign up as well. So we can share that out if you want. You know, any links you've talked about today, we're quite happy. You know, adding them on.
I think that's so interesting, Pamela. Like, you know, we talk about it all the time. I think it's come up with nearly every guest we've had on the podcast. It comes up within conversations with Albion all the time. It is about that kind of edge, starts with education, and like we always talk about how do we get it into schools and how do we get it into the curriculum. So I think that's so exciting to hear that that's what Learn with Levenseat are already kind of on a mission to do.
Yeah, it has been. It's been good. I have to say, full credit to Scottish Borders for taking the risk with us, because community benefits can be very prescribed, and they've been happy to go off paper, if you like, and just say, right, okay, we'll take this risk, and hence why the two modules that are on there are around residual waste and the street sweepings. And I'm street sweepings because that's the contracts that we have with Scottish Borders, and the next one will be the Fallon facility. So we plan to add to it. We plan to add so that the Scottish Borders as well, they're kind of the partners that they work with to recycle their food waste, etc., will come on board, and it'll be a, you know, kind of, it won't just be Levenseat's resource, and then we'll hopefully take it out to other councils, etc., as well. And
we probably need to, I'm doing my sales pitch here, Heather, we probably need to talk to Pamela about our waste quiz that we've got set up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll
Put
take that
our heads
offline.
together.
We'll take that offline.
I think like we do need to do these things together, you know. Absolutely. And I think we're all doing our own little bit, and I think if you look at, if we brought it all collected together, it would be so much more powerful, wouldn't it? And it would be one consistent message. And I think where primary schools are really well set up for learning about waste and environment, etc., the challenge I find more is in the high schools. And I really think it should be part of curriculum for the high schools. Why is there not a higher on sustainability and environmental management, etc.? But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Absolutely, yeah. That's
but
the
yeah.
vision. That was
But
going to be my
that's
next
definitely-
question. Was where do you what are you trying to achieve with that? But I think you've just said it there. That's the vision, is to kind of keep it growing and get it in as many, get it into secondary education and beyond. So yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. But that's my passion project, I suppose, if you like.
Yeah,
And,
I think you always have to have that to keep you going. I think Alistair's got spinning quite a few of those plates at the moment of his passion projects. I'm normally just get a wee email with the idea, and then before we know it, it's somehow kicked off. So we know all about that on this end.
You're the one that makes it happen, Heather.
Well, I like to think
Absolutely.
I try. So some of them are a bit magic enough, Pamela, as you could probably imagine, but we get there.
All the best ideas aren't
Absolutely,
they? A bit crazy, and then they get refined, and they've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I would like to ask you is, especially saying you had kind of no experience or no knowledge really of the waste industry before you kind of started the journey with Levenseat. Do you think, in the last 9 or so years since you started, you've changed your habits in terms of managing your waste, whether at home or out in public?
This is again. I wonder if it's because I've joined Levenseat, or I wonder if it's because I became a mum, and I became a lot more conscious of things as well, because they both kind of happen simultaneously. Working at Levenseat has definitely made me feel a lot more guilty about my habits and my consumer habits and etc. And I am far better at recycling at home. I do recycle my food waste, and it has made me question a lot of my choices. I do think I could be doing a lot better, absolutely. And it's also my big purchases. I am in the creative industry, if you like, and my house is full of upcycled furniture and things like that. But I suppose it's the small decisions you make in life that actually have the biggest impact, and where I need to get better is probably in those food waste is not good in my house. We do recycle it, but there's probably far too much of it. Probably still am over consuming at Christmas, etc. Although getting better in these things. But yeah, it's definitely opened my eyes. I touched on at the start was that before working at Levenseat, I used to put my waste in the bin, and I really didn't give it much thought further than that. I really didn't. And I remember on my first day at Levenseat getting a tour of the facility and just being completely awed at everything that they did, and particularly the street sweepings. I mean, imagine being able to take literally the muck off your road and clean it and have this sand and this aggregate and the amount of coins, etc., and everything out of it, and then turn it into concrete blocks, etc. I remember just being like, oh my God, some people need to know about this. People need to know what's going on here. People need to realise this. If I had known this, I would have probably made more of an effort. So yes, I'm much better at recycling. I feel much more guilty about the habits, my habits. And I'm much better on the bigger purchases, as I say, with a lot of charity shopping for my bigger purchases. But yeah, and I try not to lecture my friends and family, but I do find myself,
that's a common problem for people in the waste industry, I think.
Find myself at the dinner table going, and I go, oh, Pamela, stop.
Not unreasonable. I was away at an event at the weekend there. I run an event that we're camping out in the middle of the field in the Lake District, and they had these bins around the place, and there was a recycling bin, there was a residual waste bin. And honestly, I should have actually taken photographs of this recycling bin, because it was no more recycling than you couldn't tell the difference between the two. And I was just like, it's not actually that hard. My beer can that goes in the recycling, and the other stuff goes in another bin. And it's just like, you do wonder sometimes how we can, the public can get it so badly wrong. but never mind, that's a different story. So in terms of obviously busy life, Pamela, in terms of how do you get away from work? How do you relax, or do you get away? Is it possible to get away from Levenseat?
Oh yeah, I try. We do all try. I think as most people who are in the industry, that it tends to become their passion as well, doesn't it? It tends to become a big part of their life and part of their kind of. I suppose it becomes your hobby as well as your career. Obviously, I am a mum, 2 young boys, and that definitely helps. We do a lot of things as a family, and I'm part of a big family, so a lot of socialising and things at the weekend, and that's what I enjoy most, getting out and with my friends and my family, and just socialising really is how I relax. And I would really love to have a hobby. I'm always very envious of these people who have, who are, I don't know, great tennis players, or,
a
amazing.
crazy runner like Alistair.
Yeah, or even like are into crochet or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've started many a project and never finished it. Said, right, I'm gonna get into sewing, and then I'm like, right, I'm gonna get into upholstery, and it's probably my ADHD personality that I never stick to anything. But I would love to.
One day
One
you'll
day.
find something.
So
One
2 young
day.
boys, I think, is more than enough, Pamela, to keep you
Yeah.
occupied, I think.
Absolutely. It's when they get involved in a hobby, then you end up with their hobby.
Yeah.
Right.
No, exactly. I know. Yes, it's true. My little boys got right into cycling, so I find myself having to dig my bike back out and get out with him. Although he would go out every single day, and I could do that in my younger years. But now I'm saying to him, Mum can't quite handle 7 days
Can't quite keep up.
7 days in a row.
Brilliant.
Come on. But yeah, so
Oh.
no, they do keep you in check, and they do
Yeah.
give you a real reality check. But my work-life balance probably does need to be a little bit better. But yeah.
Absolutely. In terms of what's next for you in your career, what's next? You got plenty still to get your teeth into.
Take over the world. It's always one of those questions, isn't it? They ask you, and I really do think I probably should have a plan, shouldn't I?
I think most people we've actually interviewed are probably actually quite happy.
Right.
And they're quite happy in the role they're doing, which are quite challenging. So I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that.
I don't know. Like, I suppose it's a question I've been asking myself. Kids are a little bit older, getting a little bit more independent. But yeah, I guess the good thing about working for a company like Levenseat is there's always a new challenge, and that's what keeps you going. And say, if I can't, I would love to get more involved in the people side at Levenseat, and that's my intention, and being a bigger support to our managers, and for them to be able to support their teams. So I suppose it probably is developing more within this role. But yeah, I would like to think though that, in fact, say we came back, we had an anniversary edition here, and we're back here in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. I'd like to think I'd progressed a wee bit more, and maybe learn with Levenseat is across all local authorities, and all our team are happy and supported. But yeah, it's something I think about of more often recently, is where are we going? Is this enough? And at the end of the day, I suppose, when everybody wants to leave the world like they have made a difference, and am I making enough of a difference in the world? And yeah, but I suppose that's where the beauty of working in waste management is actually, you do serve a bigger purpose. You're not just in I'm trying to think of an industry to compare it to, like something like banking or something, where it's just turning out the numbers. There is a bigger purpose to what we do. So I suppose it is quite fulfilling in that way, and probably why people are quite happy to stay where they are. Once they enter the waste management world, they tend to stay, don't they? So
absolutely, that's the trend we're seeing anyway. Like, there's always something changing, there's always something challenging. I think that's what gets a lot of people hooked.
Heather's sitting there thinking, oh no.
That's me stuck. Not at all, not at all. So we could maybe use actually, Pamela, since how we were on the topic of some of your learn with Levenseat, or maybe something else. I know you talked quite a lot of detail at the top of what Levenseat do and a lot of the operational side, which is probably new to some people, but is there a certain kind of fact or statistic or something you want to share that you've learned through your role that you think would be interesting for people?
Interesting fact.
Or a shocking fact or statistic that normally gets the headlines.
I'm not going to be able to remember off the top of my head, but I suppose working on Learn and Levenseat, you know, one of the reasons that I guess Scottish Borders were quite keen to push ahead with it was that they did this composition on their waste and found that as much as I think 70% of the residual waste bin could have been recycled if it had been put in the right bin. It's like, which is quite shocking, isn't it? 70%.
You're sounding like me, Pamela. That's the one I keep rhyming off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you think, you know, the bins are there, and it is. It's one of these things where if people really want, when people ask us what can we do differently, and it really is just as simple as using the right bin for the right waste product, if you like. And that's your bit, you know, just use the right bin. If you use the right bin, let us take care of the rest. But learn what goes in the bin, and then, you know, it is, as I say, much more likely to come out of that waste and be recycled. You know, whereas we talk about a lot, don't we, in the waste management world, contamination, and I think the general public don't really know what we mean by that, but it simply is that you've put, there's a bit of metal in with the cardboard and the paper, or there's food in with the cardboard and paper, which is even worse. And it's simple as that, and those contamination rates we really need to fix and sort, and that's how we can do it, is if everybody just does their own wee bit at home, isn't it? It sounds so simple, but yet we haven't managed to achieve it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. Keep it simple, and that's what we need to do. And as you said, like all the complex things, like people like yourselves, Levenseat, you know, some of the operations that we do at Albion and a lot of the other guests we've had on, they do the complicated bit. So that's why we just need the general public to do the simple bit, and the rest is kind of already taken care of. I think that's the message we need to get out there.
That's it. And I guess I would also probably say to the general public that genuinely, and I think there's a kind of belief that it all goes to the same place anyway, so what's the point? And it's just not true.
Yeah.
you know, there's a reason why there is, Levenseat has 7 almost little different factories, because you potentially could have 7 different bins, and they all go in somewhere different.
Yeah.
To be treated. So honestly, it does make a difference.
Yeah. I think your description of seeing the waste facility for the first time, Pamela, I think if the public saw some of these waste facilities, you know, one, it'd shock them just the sheer volume of waste, and secondly, it shocked them just how badly people do actually recycle and so on, and what's put in there. But we'll get there. We'll get there to educating the world. In terms of just we give every guest a wee chance to share an acronym or a bit of industry jargon that you love or hold dearly, or maybe hate. Any nominations for this category?
I don't know if I love them all, but don't hate them. It's funny how
one you use all the time or something.
Yeah, use them all the time. I know LREL, Levenseat Renewable Energy Limited. We use that all the time, and just expect people to know what we're saying. And then Levenseat, you know, there's the industry acronyms, and then Levenseat likes to make up its own as well. And then so people say, "What's a CMRF?" And we're like, "Oh, Container Materials Recycling Facility." I think we just decided to make that up ourselves. And then like the MRFP, we've added on the P, but just to have the fuel preparation. But I suppose one and it's an area that I've not touched on for Levenseat, but Levenseat, and I never explained it at the start, which was bad of me, but there is another section of Levenseat, which is our products. We do make recycled products, mainly construction products. We've got a lot of sand and aggregates, and we also have the compost as well. But And you see a lot of our commercial team talking about IBAA, so incinerator bottom ash aggregate. And we can, if you're ever looking for recycled aggregate, anybody, we can supply that. But we are very bad for just going, oh, IBAA, and everyone's like, and sometimes you're too scared to ask what they're talking about. But that's exactly what it is. It's just it's a secondary aggregate that can be replaced, and we've got end of waste on that. So yeah, even end of waste, and that term, people, what do you mean by end of waste? And it's just that for it to be sold as a product, that we've gone through a process with the regulator, SEPA, to prove that it is compatible to its natural counterpart, and that we've got strict factory protocols in place to produce that. And again, we've got we use best available techniques, etc. And we throw these out and expect the public to know what we're talking about, and you kind of have to bring it back and say, all right, okay, we need to do some education here. But so IBAA would maybe be my one. Incinerating bottom ash aggregate. Well, I wish they would call it something different. But anyway,
no wonder there's so many acronyms. There's quite a lot of mouthfuls in there. You can understand why they're used. But yeah, even things like end of waste and stuff. It's not necessarily an acronym, but it's things that it only really makes sense as a sentence to people in the industry, and you forget that sometimes. So there's a lot there to explain.
There's probably a whole podcast needing done on end of waste itself, Heather. There's an idea. There's an idea when we run out of guests to talk to.
We'll happily bring somebody from the technical team in who could talk at length on that. But that's as much as I know.
Absolutely. No, that's great. So now probably the moment you've been waiting for. You're going to be given your magic wand to sort out one thing in the waste sector. What would you like it to be?
One thing. I think if I could use that magic wand to create a big pause button, that's what I would like to do, and just let the industry have a moment. I think nobody talks about COVID anymore, but that was a real tough time for the industry. We really had to show up for the country, and I think in my opinion, resilience is quite low. We worked long and hard to make sure we're dealing with the general public's waste and not adding any more hazards at a time where we were dealing with COVID. And I think a lot of people sort of said that we're getting back to networking, and that is quite quiet around the table. And I think people are just exhausted, to be honest. I think they're exhausted by the amount of policies and procedures and change and what we've been through in the last few years. And I think it would be nice really to take a pause and just take stock of where we've came and where we need to go as an industry. And I would like a little bit of time to just process where we are, and maybe make a bit of a new plan, a joined up plan for the future. I think that, dare I speak about the dreaded DRS? And this
You're allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, and this is very much my opinion as opposed to Levenseat's. I think that everybody understands the concept, when we're behind the concept, but the models maybe not what works. And I think that, we have some outside help from an HR compliance team, a lovely lady who comes in and helps us. And she put it she was explaining to us the other day, that about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's everybody, business, if you did your business degree, you'll know. And how at times like this, we've been through a pandemic, and we're now in a recession, and who knows how long it's going to take us to get out of that. So people are all at the bottom of that hierarchy, that we are, they're just really looking to have their basic needs met. They're looking to be able to heat their house and feed their families. And there is for many people, there's that choice between, heating the house or feeding the family. And when you're at that, you're bottom, if you're really at the bottom, then she explained it really well. She said, if you're at the bottom, you can't think much past that. So now is not the time to bring in major changes, you know, and try and get the public behind it. They just, you know, they're looking to survive, you know, never mind add another 20 pence onto their containers. I just don't think it's the right time. Timing's not great, but I also think that I'm a really bit, I have to say, really disappointed in Scotland, in that, you know, we're a nation that's known for innovation and invention. You know, we've brought many an invention to the world. We can rhyme off lots, and here we are following a system that is from another. You know, it was put in at a time when it was put in other countries at a time where it was relevant and it was the way forward. But Levenseat, Scotland is very, very innovative. It already has an infrastructure. You know, I know myself personally at Levenseat, we've had people from every continent in the world come and visit Levenseat to say, you know, Scotland's a great model. How do you do it? We want to go and recreate that in our country. Or we've had universities from all over the world come to teach their students how they can do it, how Scotland does it, and how if Scotland can do it, we can do it. But yet we're going to kind of take a couple of steps back and put in a structure that you know, we've already got a good structure, and I'm disappointed that we've not been more inventive. And I would have liked to have seen Scottish Government sort of throw it out there and say, look, there's a prize for somebody who can come up with a digital DRS or, you know, or some better way of doing this. And I remember as well, I think it was at one of the LARAC conference that AluPro were talking. They were saying, you know, we're not there yet, but we're not far off being able to put a QR code on every can. You know, we've got, it's down the line. Said, but we can do this. And you know, I think one of the most downloaded apps was in the world is this app that tracks aeroplane flights. You know, people are obsessed by watching aeroplanes travel, and I think, well, you could do that for DRS, couldn't you? You could have at home, you scan your can, you put it in, and you watch it get to the middleman, and you watch it being, it's there, it's been sorted, right, I'm going to get my 20 pence back now. You know, people would probably be quite fascinated by all of that, and I'm disappointed that we're kind of going for a system that I think might be, in my very limited knowledge, a little bit outdated, and I think we could have done better. I really do. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So pause, the big pause button is what we need.
Big pause button's good, I think, Pamela. And I think it's some of the things we've talked about before in previous episodes is that joined up, that collaboration between industry, government, regulator, and all the parties, and that, to me, that's felt like it's been a bit missing over the last few years. You know, there's people working in isolation doing bits, and as you said earlier on, you know, if we can gather all these bits together and work together as a whole, then it could be so much better.
But why do you think that it's, Alice? Or why do you think those silos have kind of formed over the last few years? Do you think it's been COVID, or do you think it's just been people generally turned off by?
I think COVID actually helped in a sense that there were cross-party groups set up. There were parties that I was involved in, a couple, and in terms of the waste management, that there was actually quite good communication developed during COVID. I think prior to that, I think it was vested interests. I think there's organisations in Scotland that have a vested interest to look after what they do, and that means they don't look outwards as much as they maybe should.
Right. How do we change that then? How do we bring everybody back together?
I think it's working collaboratively with the likes of the Resource Management Association Scotland, CISA, local. You know, you mentioned LARAC. It's working with these organisations to strengthen the voice of the industry that Scottish Government, Zero Waste Scotland, SEPA have actually got to listen properly and engage properly.
I agree.
There you go. You've
Yeah.
you've turned to be the interviewer now, but that's not
know.
allowed.
No,
I
I
know.
genuinely
That's banned in this podcast.
I know, because I'm genuinely interested, and and
Yeah.
I think I've still got. I genuinely believe I'm a lifelong learner, and I've genuinely got a lot more to learn, and so it's nice to
Yeah.
hear other
Good.
Yeah,
people's
absolutely. I think that was great. I really loved that though about your pause button. I think you're so right, and not just for the industry but for everyone. I think we forget the crazy times that we've just lived through, and in order to make things happen and make improvements, you need to make sure we're all kind of looked after, and you can't go on and change the world if you can't look after yourself. So I thought that was really good, what you said there, Pamela, and I think that is a good use of a magic wand, if I must say so.
Yeah, no, I think resilience is low nationwide.
Yeah.
It's not reserved just for the
absolutely.
waste sector. But
Yeah. Well, final question, I suppose. I think be quite interesting if you were to give any advice for anyone wanting to follow a similar career path. As much as you said, probably like a lot of people, you didn't map it out on your own. But if anyone is interested in kind of where you are just now and coming into a similar role within the industry, is there anywhere you would tell them to look, or anything, Levenseat have got resource-wise and things to get people in, whether it's internships or work placements or anything?
yeah, say don't do it. No, I'm only joking. I genuinely do love the not only the role I'm in comms, but also the sector I'm in the waste management sector, and I would encourage anyone to follow that path. And I think the key is to find an area that you love, and then it doesn't feel like work, does it? You don't have that Sunday night dread of, oh, I've got to go into work tomorrow. You're actually quite excited about it, and that's the difficult part. I found that difficult, but I've just kind of landed here, if you like, and that if you can be, I think if you enjoy it, you can be passionate about it, and I think that comes through. And then you've got to find industry that you want to be in, don't you? And I think that people probably don't understand that within the waste management industry, we've got everything. There's finance, there's commercial, there's compliance and health and safety, there's science, environmental science, there's engineers and maintenance and everything you can think of that would be in any other sector. It's there. So, yeah, follow the finance field, but come and work in waste. And I would say is just be, I guess, just ask. But Levenseat, if anyone's ever approached us and said, look, I'd like some work experience or I would like to do an internship, we've never said no. We've always said yes. It's very unlikely for anyone to say no. And I know there's always that fear of rejection, but put yourself out there and we'll do what we can to help. And if we can't personally help, we'll try and, send you somewhere else. And just, soak up as much as you can from other people. I find generally people do like to talk about their careers and their experience. So there's a lot of good mentors in the industry, and if you can definitely learn a lot from these people with all the experience. Not me, but anyone else. But yeah, and but seriously consider waste. Seriously consider comms. We are very much I think overlooked at times, but we play a big part in educating the world and what any industry does, and it really is key to the business, I think. So
Yeah.
consider it as an option. But yeah, I couldn't recommend the waste management industry enough. I don't think it really is there's a bigger purpose there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, Pamela. Well, I think we've exhausted our questions, and I think you gave such a great summary, and you're in good company here, peddling the comms and the business development and marketing side of things, because that's where I am.
I'm feeling ganged up in here.
Yeah, for once, Pamela, I've got someone on my side of the field. But yeah, it is such a different kind of role from a lot of the people we've had on, but it's still so complex, and you do get to really get stuck in there and learn a lot. And I think that's also something to shout about for people if you're, I think a lot of careers in marketing, or if you've done business, you kind of do think it's so. I was the same. I felt this is so general. Where do I go now once I had my degree? And you have to kind of find that niche in some industry like waste or environment or sustainability, whatever it is. There's so much to learn. There's so much changing and happening, and it's absolutely the place, I think, for young people who are passionate and like change and like a bit of kind of diversity. Then this is the one for them.
Yeah, I mean, it really is quite a young industry, isn't it? And so therefore there's not a lot of people stuck in their ways, and there's a lot of development still to come. So that's what to me is really exciting as well, is that, you know, I know a lot of talk about it being very slow moving, but sometimes when you look back, and even when I look back on my 9 years at Levenseat, it was 9 years ago, it really was a sort of landfill company with recycling on the side, and 9 years later it's a recycling company with landfill on the side. And you know, there is major leaps and bounds that the industry's making, so it's really exciting time to be a part of that. So come join us.
Perfect. Thank you
That's
for
the promo we
that,
need.
Pamela. Thank you very much for all your time and answering all our questions. It's been great.
Well, thank you. It's been some career therapy, I think. And
love that.
Absolutely.
It's always nice to talk to you both, and hopefully I didn't waffle on too much, and it made sense, and we did the role justice, but who knows?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you did, and it saved me and Heather having to waffle on, so you've done perfectly.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Pamela. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.